Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys about some of the ridiculous stuff that you see women out there, particularly now women all over Instagram. Used to be just in the gyms, now we see it on Instagram. The ridiculous stuff they do trying to build their butts up. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing. Work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and yeah, let's talk about this. All right, we came across some of this morning because you guys know Brittany's on Instagram a lot. She's very active on there. And she came across a female who was doing ridiculous stuff for her glutes. Some of those little one-legged things women do behind them. Doing something up on a Smith machine while laying down on a bench, doing stuff on a Smith machine. Trying to stimulate the glutes with their legs behind them. Some of these booty blasters that women buy and everything. And it's just ridiculous. And the way we need to look at this, with all these ridiculous things, they're not stopping and thinking things through. Now with Brittany, when I met her, she had, as she described herself, SpongeBob SquarePants. Because she carries almost zero fat on her butt genetically, she has a very, very small butt. Now, people need to also remember the J-Lo booty and everything, that is going to be a lot of fat there as well. And you can't really control where you gain or lose fat, only that you gain or lose fat. But you can control how much muscle you have under there, which will give you a rounder, larger booty. But the thing is that these women aren't thinking about, they're so worried about trying to do stuff to tone that they're forgetting the basics of exercise science, the basics of how you make a muscle grow. Now, women are oftentimes worried about getting big and bulky, and they really don't need to without gear. Gear is slang for anabolic steroids. All the women who are big and bulky that people think of are using synthetic male hormones in their body. And that's why they do that. That's why they get big and muscular. But when you're talking about bulky and bulking up, something that women should be thinking about there, you are trying to bulk up. Stop and think about that. If you wanted to add 2 inches of ass muscle to your glutes, all right, 2 inches of ass muscle is an enormous amount. Basically, your goal should be to make your butt big and bulky. All right, just like women are worried about their shoulders or arms getting too big and bulky. Okay, fine, I get that. But if you're trying to get a bigger butt or develop your butt, you want your butt to get big and bulky. You're trying to add a couple of inches of roundness to it. That requires an enormous amount of muscle growth. Now, do you really think that sitting around doing little fluff and pump stuff to tone is going to bulk a muscle up? Is it going to get big and bulky doing that? Well, maybe, but it could take you years to see any results. What we did with Brittany, again, people who follow what she does, she's added probably 2 to 3 inches of muscle to her butt. Now, she still doesn't have an enormous butt, but she does get a lot of compliments. Particularly other girls notice that. Particularly friends she's had from a couple years ago, the fact that she has a bigger, rounder butt now while weighing 30 to 40 pounds less than she used to. They notice, all her female friends notice. Again, she gets compliments on that. She gets asked what she does. You guys know what she does? Box squats and deadlifts. Box squats and deadlifts. Now, when you stop and think about it, the functions of the glutes, how do you get a muscle big and bulky? You load heavy weight on it. You make it do a heavy workload, and preferably through a full range of motion. You work the muscle completely with moderately heavy weight. Moderately heavy weight. What are the exercises that are going to work the butt the most? That it's impossible to not recruit the glutes on. Any sort of squat. Squatting down and coming back up. The deeper you go, the more the glutes are activated. All right, that's one of the things that's been noted. People try to point out, well, if you're squatting for the quads or whatever, you don't have to go ass to grass. You don't have to go all the way down. That beyond a certain point, the quads don't really get recruited anymore. And yeah, they're right. The quads only get recruited part of the way because the deeper you go, the more the glutes take over. But if your goal is to build a bigger butt, and guys should be worried about that too. I don't know why guys don't seem to realize that, by the way, guys, but every study ever done on women, when they're asked what muscle or part of a man's body they notice first, you do know it's the butt, right? 60% of women say the butt. Chest, arms, shoulders, all that other stuff is all crammed into the last 40%. Most women, over half, notice your butt first. That's the most attractive part on a man. So if you're trying to impress women with your body, maybe spending a little less time on your biceps a little more time on your ass would get you more girls. Just throwing that out there. For gay dudes, obviously that's probably doubled. Guys trying to get girls, pretty high up there. All right, so glute training is important, but you build glutes by squatting down and coming back up. And the deeper you go, the more the glutes get activated. So if your goal is to build a big butt, shouldn't you be squatting all the way down, squatting deep, squatting ass to grass with a moderately heavy weight? That's how you build a butt. What else builds the butt? Pulling a heavy weight from the floor. A lot of women love Romanian deadlifts, and I used to have Brittany do Romanian deadlifts. Those are great, but they use a really light weight half the time. Well, Romanian deadlifts are more of a hamstring specific exercise. Because you don't touch the floor on a Romanian deadlift, it's an eccentric base where you lower it and you use the hamstrings to snap it back up like a rubber band. All right, it gets a myotatic reflex in the hamstrings. But because you don't touch the floor and because it's hamstring dominant, you don't build the glutes as much. You know what builds glutes? Deadlifts from the floor. If you have the mobility for it, how about deficit deadlifts? That'll build even more glutes if you have the mobility to do them safely. What else builds glutes? Power cleans. Any exercise where you pull the weight from the floor explosively requires an enormous amount of muscle activation in the glutes to get the weight started. All right, it is the primary mover involved with breaking a heavy weight off the floor. You lose that when you do touch and go deadlifts and bounce it, but if you do a full reset on every rep, the glutes are the most important muscle in breaking the weight off the floor in the first few inches. You very rarely see anyone who is strong on the deadlift or even the power clean or any of the Olympic lifts, because you pull all those from the floor explosively fast. Well, explosive movements from the floor require the glutes to activate enormously. You'll never see someone who's strong on those exercises who doesn't have well-developed glutes, basically a well-developed butt. You're not going to see it. So it starts to beg the question of, when all the exercise science and data we have shows that squats and deadlifts are just about the most powerful glute activating exercises. Now we could argue about glute bridges and stuff, but I don't think that's necessary. I think those might only really be helpful for people who have honestly a genetic weak point with their glutes, but they're still not necessary all the time. That's a different topic. I know Brett Contreras is big on those. We're talking about doing the basics, but you still wouldn't bypass the basics to do that. You would add that to it as an assistance exercise. But every bit of data we have tells us that squatting deep activates the glutes. Pulling a heavy weight from the floor explosively activates the glutes. All of this stuff actually activates the glutes a lot more than any of these little one-legged things you see women doing. I don't care whether it's like a standing overhead press on one leg, to things they try to do, pushing a weight behind them like the woman's doing on the Smith machine, which is just absurd, where people are trying to push a weight behind them to activate the glutes. None of those things will have anywhere near the muscle fiber activation that the deep squat and the deadlift from the floor do. All right, it is not biomechanically possible for these exercises to do that. In fact, because of the nature of these exercises, the awkwardness of them, you have to use less weight. Less weight unless there's a reason why it's beneficial, because maybe it's pulling other muscles out, but using a really light weight doesn't always recruit the best muscle fibers. In addition to that, look at all these exercises. They're partial movements for the glutes at best. They don't even work the muscle because there's no hip hinge involved for the most part. Think about that. Most of these exercises that these people are doing aren't working the glutes through a full range of motion. They're not working them anywhere near a full range of motion, some of the stuff they're doing, and they're working on an enormous muscle. The glutes are one of the biggest, most powerful muscles in your body. They are capable of moving enormous amounts of weight, and they're only recruited when they move fairly enormous amounts of weight. That's what they're amazing at. Yet people want to take these, particularly women, want to take these little light, fluffy movements and think that they're going to build an ass doing that. You might, but it might take you 5 years for it to happen because you're doing such minimal work for your butt that it might take you 5 years to do what you could have done in a year to 2 years. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's all done because women are scared of doing the big movements because they don't want to get big and bulky. which is ironic because one of the most important muscles work, probably the most effective muscle in those big movements, is the muscle that they're actually trying to make big and bulky. And they don't always see the contradiction there. And it's really sad in a way because you see a lot of garbage and nonsense being put out there that they're trying to do just to try to work the butt to build a butt. And they're ignoring not only the best exercises for their butt, but some of the best exercises to prevent a lot of female-related health problems that happen in middle age and early elderly age. Those postmenopausal years or menopausal years, when women start having all those hip problems, bone demineralization, all those problems that women have when they reach that age, and for a lot of women doing this, that's coming up in 10 or 15 years, these big, heavy barbell movements actually stop a lot of those things from happening. It could actually improve their overall health because the big barbell movements reduce osteoporosis. They reduce cancer rates. That is a proven scientific fact. Lifting weights, particularly big full body type movements, reduces cancer rates. So all these women coming up in their 30s and 40s that are coming up who are going to start developing problems with osteoporosis, higher chances of breast cancer, higher chances of ovarian cancers, all these things, the movements that they're scared of doing would not only help build their ass, but would also lower their chances of having all these terrible diseases. And so really it's kind of sad that more women aren't aware of this fact because it could be helping them on so many levels, not just their appearance, but their long-term physical health and their quality of life. Again, the number of women out there who suffer from breast cancer and stuff, I would think most women, if they knew for a fact that certain exercises would not only build their ass, but would cut their chances of getting breast cancer in half, you would think they would all be jumping on top of it. Again, any woman who's ever had a family member who got breast cancer, you would think they would be immediately on top of that. Just throwing that out there. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.